I'm Hunter Kanoki, and this is Fool's FAQ, a show where I take the internet's most burning questions and give you an answer that'll make you the smartest person at your next physical therapy session. On today's episode, is knuckle popping all it's cracked up to be? It's a small habit with a big reputation, and for generations, crack your knuckles has been labeled everything from a harmless quirk to the surefire path to arthritis. At family dinners and doctor offices alike, the debate has echoed, are those pops a harmless release or a ticking time bomb for your joints? Here's the thing, if you're a knuckle cracker, you've definitely heard the warnings. You'll get arthritis, said your teachers, parents, grandparents, that one friend who thinks they know everything about health because they read a WebMD article once. They've all chimed in with dire predictions about your future hand functionality. But what if I told you that this widespread belief might be nothing more than a well-intentioned myth that has been passed down from generations like a really boring game of telephone? So let's start with the obvious question. What actually happens when your knuckles crack? The real culprit here is something called synovial fluid, basically your body's version of premium motor oil for your joints. This fluid keeps everything moving smoothly and contains dissolved gases, primarily nitrogen and carbon dioxide, just hanging out in liquid form. When you stretch or pull your finger, you're creating space in the joint. And this sudden expansion drops the pressure inside, kind of like opening a shaken soda bottle. The dissolved gases can't stay dissolved anymore, so they rapidly form bubbles in a process scientists call cavitation, or, if you want to sound really fancy at parties, tribonucleation. But here's where things get interesting. For decades, scientists actually thought that the pop sound came from these bubbles collapsing. But recent research using real-time MRI imaging showed that the sound actually comes from the bubbles forming, not bursting. The cavity actually appears at the exact same moment when you hear a crack, and then it just stays there for a while, like a tiny gas pocket. Now let's tackle the big question that's probably been haunting your knuckle cracking conscious. Does this habit actually cause arthritis? The short answer, no. The long answer, absolutely no, backed by decades of research. Multiple large-scale studies have consistently found no correlation between habitual knuckle cracking and the development of osteoarthritis. We're talking about research involving hundreds of participants comparing knuckle crackers to non-crackers, looking at x-rays, measuring grip strength, checking for joint damage, everything. But here's my favorite piece of evidence because it's both scientifically sound and slightly unhinged. Dr. Donald Unger, a California physician who was apparently tired of his mother telling him he'd get arthritis, decided to conduct the ultimate self-experiment. For 50 years, that's 5 decades for all of our mathematicians out there, he systematically cracked his knuckles on his left hand at least twice a day while deliberately never cracking his right hand. The result? After 36,500 cracks on his left hand and keeping the right hand in a pristine non-cracking condition, neither hand showed any signs of arthritis. Dr. Unger then published his findings in the medical journal Arthritis and Rheumatism and was awarded the Ig Nobel Prize in 2009 for research that, quote, first makes people laugh and then makes them think. But wait, some studies suggest that cracking your knuckles might actually have temporary benefits. Research shows that joints have increased range of motion immediately after cracking. We're talking about small but measurable improvements in flexibility that last for a short period. This might explain why some people feel that their joints are looser or more comfortable after cracking their knuckles. It's not just in your head, not entirely. There's a real, if temporary, biomechanical change happening. Now, before you go full knuckle cracking maniac, let's talk about the potential downsides, because while arthritis isn't on the menu, there are still a few things to keep in mind. First, technique matters, and I know it sounds like I'm talking about a golf grip here or something, but if you're yanking on your fingers like you're trying to start a lawnmower, then you could potentially injure ligaments or even dislocate a finger. The key word here is could. We're talking about rare occurrences when excessive force is used. And some older studies suggested that habitual knuckle crackers might have slightly reduced grip strength, but more recent research has kind of been mixed on that point. The current scientific consensus is that if there is any effect, it's minimal and the jury's still out on whether knuckle cracking is actually the cause. There have been isolated reports of people developing hand swelling or joint pads from excessive cracking, but again, we're talking about extreme cases here. And for your average garden variety knuckle cracker, these just aren't really realistic concerns. But here's something interesting that might blow your mind. As the knuckle crackers may know, once you crack a joint, you can't crack it again for about 20 to 30 minutes. This isn't your joints being stubborn, it's actually the time it takes for those gases to redissolve back into the synovial fluid. Think of it as your joint's built-in cooldown period. This refractory period might actually be protective. Your body's essentially saying, okay, you got your satisfaction, now give me some time to reset before you do that again. So why do people actually crack their knuckles in the first place? Well, the reasons are as varied as the people who do it. Some folks say it's just to relieve stress or anxiety, kind of like some fidget spinner made of bone of cartilage, and others enjoy the sensation of tension release, even though that feeling is largely psychological. Some people just like the sound, and others just do it out of pure habit without even thinking about it. Interestingly, studies show that between 25 and 54% of people crack their knuckles regularly. So, if you're a knuckle cracker listening now, you're definitely not alone in this habit, as I too am a proud cracker of knuckles for those wondering. So, the bottom line, your grandmother's dire warnings about arthritis are well-intentioned but scientifically unfounded. Decades of research involving thousands of participants have consistently shown that knuckle cracking doesn't cause arthritis, doesn't permanently damage your joints, and doesn't make your knuckles bigger. And the most convincing evidence just might be Dr. Unger's 50-year personal experiment, which proved that you can crack your knuckles tens of thousands of times without developing arthritis. And if a guy who cracked his knuckles over 36,000 times can walk away with healthy joints and an Ig Nobel Prize, you're probably going to be just fine. That said, everything in moderation. Don't go crazy with the force. Pay attention to your body. And if you ever experience pain while cracking, which shouldn't happen, maybe ease up a bit. But for most people, the biggest risk of knuckle cracking is probably the social consequences of annoying absolutely everyone around you. Thank you so much for listening to Fool's FAQ. Feel free to leave a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts, as it also helps new listeners discover the show. For more fascinating answers to your burning questions, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and always stay curious.